What's going on, y'all? Today we'll be doing a patch note rundown for the last major patch of the PBE cycle for set 9.5. Now, of course, there will be a day one patch next Wednesday for the live patch, and maybe there'll be a Tuesday patch on the PBE server if you want to practice. But if you really want to get some practice, the time is now to do it. And hey, if you guys are new to the channel, I've been playing this game since the Dodo Auto Chess mod back in the day, and I've peaked Challenger more sets than I haven't. And if you'd like to get a jump start on set 9.5, I'll be doing loads of guides because I'm playing the PBE server like crazy. And I will give you the major updates to all the game. We cover the meta, we cover the big updates. So if you're new to the channel and you'd like to have a jump start to meet your set 9.5 ranked goals, then hey, press the subscribe button down there. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. So first up, we have the one-cost champions. Cho'Gath is getting a small buff here, small mana buff. His initial cast will be at the same time, but he will cast more often, and a reduced spell lockout time. So for you Cho-Bidem enjoyers, maybe give this reroll a try. This is there's not a whole lot of rerolls that are super successful right now. A lot of the builds that are successful that I've seen high level players playing and that I've seen in my games personally is mostly 4-cost related builds. Especially around Shurima, Azir, and that sort of thing. So maybe there'll be some more reroll builds here, and Cho'Gath is getting buffed as well as Malzahar. So if you guys like doing that Void Bruiser line, maybe give it a try. I think also a lot of people are just not playing the Void Bruiser line right here. They probably don't have super good data on this because they probably don't have a lot of people playing it. I don't think it's that strong, but also it's one of the few trees that got completely unchanged. Bruiser and Void lines have no changes to them going into the set. So I think a lot of people are just not even wanting to play them. Graves getting nerfed right here. For Rogue has been performing pretty well, as well as people have been doing some Graves reroll tech with Kiana. I think that's the worst of the Rogue rerolls, but some people have been doing it. So getting a small nerf right here makes some sense to me. Milio is getting a small buff on main target damage, not on the bounce damage. I think this is a good place to buff Milio. Milio has felt slightly underwhelming after they really nerfed him a lot. They nerfed him a lot on the last patch cycle because he was very strong on launch for PBE. So this makes a lot of sense to me. And this also is makes sense whenever you reroll Graves, you reroll Milio a lot of time. So maybe if you like doing that reroll build, it probably feels about the same, but maybe just think about itemizing your Milio. I don't know. We'll see. And then Orianna is getting a small buff as well. Again, I just think a lot of people aren't playing this Sork, Bruiser, Void line early game, but I still think it's probably going to be pretty solid. We're going to be a pretty solid early game line. And they're also buffing the 6 Void. So Void might turn into being one of those free top 4 comps, assuming you have the opener, you get the emblem, and you just ride it out for a top 4. Pretty low cap, I think Void is right now. But it's probably one of those comps you are worthy of practicing if you never play Void, but I do think it is the easiest line in the game to play. So yeah, I think it's probably going to be viable for just like a free top 4 comp now, even once we go to live, assuming there's no big changes around it. All right, Samira is getting a small nerf right here. Samira feels very good. Her line feels... So Noxus has been performing pretty well. I'm not sure about Samira's actual reroll build. I haven't really seen a lot of people playing Noxus reroll, like early game Noxus reroll, like 1-cost. But she performs very well with Nefiri, and I really like her line in the early game, like playing around the 3 units of just Samira, Cassio, and Nefiri +1, just plus a Noxus unit. I think that line is really good and feels very strong in the early game. So this makes some sense to me, as well as they are buffing Nefiri in here. So this makes a lot of sense. Ashe is getting a small buff. We are back to where Ashe just gets buffed every patch again. We'll see how that works because they made Freljord kind of weird, and you actually don't play Ashe a lot. On the Executioner builds, you end up just playing Jhin because he's an Ionian. And then Ashe doesn't really have like a really good spot right now, even though she's still a great unit. She just doesn't really have her own build because people aren't really going out of their way to play Freljord. And if you're playing... Vanquishers, sorry, I always say Executioners. If you're playing Vanquishers, then you just want to play Jhin, Nyla, and then Jhin, Nyla, Darius. It's just like way easier to play with your Xayah. So yeah, she's in a weird spot. We'll see how this shakes out. Jinx is getting a small buff right here, as well as Zaun augments are getting buffed. Or not augments, but yeah, the Zaun augment getting buffed, but the Zaun mods are getting buffed. And we'll talk about that later. I actually think the high roll of playing vertical Zaun, like 4 or 6 Zaun, is actually already pretty good, and it's getting buffed heavily. Now, I think the high roll, meaning you have like 2 emblems and the augment, I versed some of that, and that felt extremely strong. But just playing 4 Zaun does not seem very good without an emblem. So they're trying to do some changes where maybe you can do that, but I think they're slightly overbuffing Zaun. So we gotta see how this goes. If you guys like playing Jinx reroll with a Zaun emblem, maybe give it a try on this patch, because I do think they are slightly overbuffing Zaun on this patch. So we'll see how it goes. Nefiri Eviscerate damage is her own spells damage right here is getting buffed right here. makes some sense to me. I've been playing a little bit into Fury reroll. She's super, super, super fun. Probably the funnest unit added into the set, honestly. We'll see how this goes. So, yeah, compensation nerf right here makes sense to me. If you guys like trying to play Nefuria reroll, give it a try. But it's also buff on the 1 and 2 star. So just playing her as a tempo unit, I find her to be a very good tempo unit going into a lot of AD comps, especially if you're playing like Shurima and then you want to move into like Shurima with Fiora. I think she's a great Fiora item holder, so make sure you give Nefuria a try if you haven't been trying it, especially with this buff right here. I really do like that Noxus Shurima line in the early game, and it got buffed a little bit here, so give it a try. And then Swain is getting taken down. Swain is getting nerfed. He's gotten nerfed like every patch so far in the PBE cycle. I haven't really seen Swain being oppressive, but maybe they're seeing games I'm not seeing. But Swain's down a little bit. And now again, I just said that Noxus line is very strong, and they are nerfing Noxus a little bit in a couple different ways. So that's probably why. It's because that Noxus line seems very strong just as a early game line and pushing into a vertical. That's probably why. But you can just play Darius or whoever right here. I feel like Swain is to me. And now Swain does really well in that strategist Silco Azir comp, so maybe this is why. I don't know. They're probably buffing him for a few of those reasons. Noxus line seems very good. The Shurima line he fits in is very good. That's probably why. But I find he is the least important unit for me in the early game. Noxus line, if I'm playing around the like Shurima, Nefiri, Samira, that sort of tech, I feel like I can just play any Noxus unit. So yeah, these make sense to me just based off of everything else being, all of his traits and everything being strong around him. That makes sense. Okay, so Talia is getting buffed right here. So her first cast will come out a little bit earlier, but she will not cast quicker on her subsequent casts, right? And then her knock-up spell damage. So this is not when she throws her rocks. This is her actual spell damage. I played a little bit of Talia reroll. Has not felt good. Maybe give it a try now if you guys are Talia enjoyers, but I don't know, man. This build has not felt good to me at all. Vi is getting a small buff. And again, she fits in this kind of like Zaun reroll tech. So maybe give this a try if you guys want to. But this is probably a little bit of compensation because Echo is getting nerfed as well as 4 Rogue. Jace is getting a small buff right here, as we can see. But guys, give that kind of like, people call it like arcane reroll or whatever. Maybe give that a try, especially with the Zaun buffs. If you have a Zaun emblem, maybe give it a try this patch. Could be good. Okay, cool. We have Jace right here. We already talked about. Now, Miss Fortune's getting a lot of changes. Miss Fortune is very strong. She feels very good, but her cast does fizzle. I'm not going to read this whole thing. Her cast does fizzle sometimes, and sometimes the units move and she misses. I do think her X targeting is actually really good, and she misses far less often than like a circle targeting does. That has been my experience, but now it'll cast a little bit earlier, and she will more consistently cast to what her visual indicator shows whenever she's shooting into the air, because she does shoot into the air really fast, but sometimes she dies and then her spell fizzles. So that'll happen less often, and so that is why they are reducing her spell damage as well. Also, Bilgewater has felt pretty good, and Miss Fortune has felt very strong in the build, as well as Strategist is pretty strong. So this makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, Nico. I think if you were playing Miss Fortune, this changes nothing for you, though. I think they're aiming for power neutral here. Nico is getting a small buff. Yeah, Nico's feels a little underwhelming as a tank. Yeah, whenever Mordog was doing his rundown, he was like, this is a damage doer. You want to give her damage. And I'm like, oh, well, why'd you give her a fat shield then? Like, why'd you make her... I don't know. I think you put... You can put AP items on her and it scales her shield. So I think like Death Cap plus tank items is good. She's kind of like old school, like if you guys played old sets of like Annie as like a tank, I kind of think about her like that. Like she can deal some damage. Frontline Annie, like 2-cost Annie and several different sets she's been in. I feel like she can do some damage, but like, you can put some AP items on her, but you really want tank plus AP, I think, is going to be good. Quinn is getting nerfed. Quinn has been performing quite well, as well as the entire Demacia line has been very strong, and we'll see some nerfs to the Demacia line as well. The Demacia line is really good, and this is why I really think you guys should be playing Earth right now. I think everybody should be practicing Earth. I think a lot of the verticals are strong. I think a lot of emblems are strong. There's a lot of good emblem users. I have a whole video about that, so make sure and check that out on the channel. It's one of my recent uploads, so if you guys want to learn more about Earth, check that out and why you should be playing it. And Demacia especially, because you can go Slayer, you can go Demacia, and Slayer is built into the vertical now with Kayle and Quinn are both Slayers. So yeah, this makes a lot of sense to me. You guys really should be practicing playing Earth right now, even if you don't like playing Earth. I think everyone should be practicing it. Okay, Rek'Sai significantly increased her animation speed when not dashing through her target. Cool, so a lot of buffs to the Void line. I think you guys should give the Void line a try. I know it's super boring. I will practice a little bit of the Void line. this week. Yeah, I think Void Line probably will be a free top 4 on launch. Extremely easy to play, and if you have the opener, probably a free top 4. But the cap, I do suspect the cap for Void is pretty low still. Okay, Tarek is getting taken down a little bit right here. Okay, probably doesn't change too much. And maybe some compensation nerfs because they are buffing Aphelios' build, but I don't know. They're buffing Aphelios, but they're also nerfing some things that go well with him. So like Tarek is getting nerfed a little bit. I think Aphelios has not been performing super well. I think a lot of people haven't been wanting to play him either, but I don't think he's been performing that well. So Moonblast is getting buffed. So this is actual when he throws out his big ability, not his chakrams, right? It's getting a 25% buff on the 2 ranks that matter. That's pretty substantial. Give Aphelios a try. They're also doing some changes to Sojin, and that might be some tech. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Not sure if it's going to be good, but I think it could be some tech on Aphelios, but we'll see. All right, Azir is getting nerfed just a tiny bit, 5 on 1 and then 10 on 2. Now, this does actually matter because he can hit AoE with this, so it's not just 10 damage, and it's he'll have 3 soldiers out, so this can be like down 30 damage, and then also the AoE when you're hitting people. So this is actually a decent nerf. This was like the same buff that he got on live, like maybe a patch or 2 patches ago, that actually made him a lot more viable. So don't sleep on this nerf, but I do think the Azir Shurima line is still going to be super good. I think he has a lot of builds he's successful in, so still keep practicing Azir. Now, Fiora is getting buffed at 3-star. Who cares? Fiora's very strong, very good. She is getting a nerf to her Radiant item, so she actually is getting a slight nerf on this patch. For those of you who think Fiora is broken, she is getting a slight nerf, but I think she's just pretty solid. I don't think she's too broken. Okay, Kai'Sa is getting a... this is aimed for power neutral because they're changing starting mana for Archangel, Sojin, that sort of thing, and moving the power in kind of weird spots. Like Sojin's getting a higher AD ratio, which is why I think, Sojin. I played some Sojin Xayah, felt pretty solid. And maybe we might give Sojin Aphelios a try. So I think Sojin's gonna be a great item slam now. Just like it's a good early game item, and if you can flex it in AD, that would be wild. So we'll see how that goes. And so they're aiming for power neutral here, so not much has changed with Kai'Sa. Mordekaiser is getting nerfed. Now, I don't actually think Mordekaiser is, like, alone as a unit, I don't think he's that powerful. Like, he is good, of course. But he actually has a lot of builds that he fits into. He fits into some Azir comps. He fits into some Strategist comps. Noxus Vertical is good. He fits into Demacian Vertical comps sometimes, or especially in that one. He only sometimes fits in, like, weird Shurima stuff. Yeah, so he just has a lot of comps he fits into and has very flexible itemization. So this makes sense to me. Give Mordekaiser some testing this week. I'll definitely need to test Mordekaiser more this week to really find how to play him better, especially surrounding these nerfs. And he fits into a lot of comps. Like I think this is a unit that needs a lot of testing from everybody because he is a kind of a weird unit a little bit on all the spots he can fit in. Nasus is getting nerfed. Nasus is very strong. And Juggernaut Frontline is also very strong in a bunch of builds. So this makes a lot of sense to me. Shurima's strong. Juggernaut's strong. So yeah, makes a lot of sense. All right, Nyla is getting some changes, like power neutral, it looks like. So her empowered line AD damage is getting buffed, so she is going to be better with hard AD items. Guys, I already think, and we're going to talk more about the RFC tech in a second, because RFC was bugged. It was doing weird damage amplification. So if you don't know, RFC has a 12% bonus damage. Like, it makes you deal 12% more damage. And if you built multiple RFCs, ideally it should just go like 12 to 24 to 36. It should be additive. It was multiplying them, then adding them. So it was going, if you built 3, it was going 36, 36, 36. And guys, even with that build, I still didn't even think it was that good. I don't think it was worthy of forcing. Like, I think you were like, it was good, obviously, once you got it online, the triple RFC or double RFC or whatever. I do think that was good once you got online, but I think it's way overblown. Way overblown. I think you would have much more success if you're actually good at the game and just played like a human, instead of like taking TF, which is a dog shit legend, and building triple RFCs in the early game. Like, that line, I just think it was already better to play like a human, and now it's been bug fixed. So do not do the triple RFC tech anymore. If you were liking that and you were enjoying that because it was really fun, do not do that anymore. It is not good. But build one RFC. One RFC on Naiwa is going to be good. And I think they're doing these AD changes right here because a lot of people were just building RFC, and you could put random garbage on her. But now she'll actually scale a little bit better with actual AD items. I've really liked building like Titans BT RFC, but maybe I'll try to dip into like more of like RFC. You know, she actually stays out of damage range. Maybe I'll go like RFC Hodge plus a damage item and just like forego you know, like the tankiness of BT. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I think Naiwa will need a lot of tests to see her optimal itemization. But if you guys want to play Naiwa, I really think you could just go RFC plus random garbage, and she's actually super strong, especially in 4 Vanquisher builds. Okay, Sejuani is getting buffed. So Sejuani and Ashe got buffed, and they are buffing Freljord because basically right now no one plays Freljord. There's no point to, because on the current patch right now it is at 20% Shred and Sunder, which is less than all the items that give you those effects, which made sense to me. That Freljord should not be as powerful, just like it was in a previous set. But 3 Freljord is impossible to hit, and 3 Freljord no longer gives Mana Reave. God bless, that was unbelievably broken, and it was bad for the game, being in the game, because it always made you want to play 3 Freljord if it was possible. But right now, like Ashe, as I was talking about earlier, doesn't naturally even fit into her own Vanquisher build anymore, because a lot of times you just want to play 6 Ionia, and then you're going to be playing Jhin, Darius, Nyla, instead of playing Ashe. And then when you're playing like Aphelios, the other like premier backline AD carry, this doesn't fit naturally in there. Normally you're playing around like Bastion, Juggernauts, that sort of thing whenever you're playing Aphelios. So they're buffing these, so maybe you'll actually go out of your way to play them when you don't have Shred or Sunder in your comp, because now the Freljord is getting buffed to 30% in line with all the other Sundering and Shredding effects, as well as they buff the individual units. I think the individual units were already fine. So in instances where you don't have those effects and you need those effects in your comp, perhaps definitely test this week going out of your way to put Freljord in your comp when you don't have the effects for your comp that you need. Try it, especially when you have a Scion. I think it could be good. Definitely try it out. All right, Shin, self-shield amount is getting nerfed. Shin is very good. He's probably the premier tank in this set right now. Him and Nasus. When Nasus getting nerfed down, I think Shin definitely would take the spot as a premier tank. And he's probably still the premier tank in this set. So keep playing Shin, guys. So Silco is getting nerfed. And I was initially surprised when I was reading this, because I think Silco is the best duo carry with Aphelios. Fits very naturally into his build, especially if you want to play around some Juggernaut stuff. You play Jinx as your side gunner. You can get the Zon tech going. I was a little surprised about this, but with the context of Zon getting buffed quite a bit, as well as Jinx getting buffed, this makes sense to me, as well as Silco has replaced Lux in the Strategist Azir composition and performs quite well in that, and keeps the comp alive so that Azir himself can carry. So this makes a lot more sense to me. That Strategist Azir Silco build got a lot of nerfs on this patch, so I'm definitely going to test it, because that was one of the comps that were performing really, really, really well. So I'll do some testing. But this makes me sad, because this really hurts Aphelios, and Aphelios, I think, needs a little bit of love. So I'm going to test out some Aphelios Silco comps. We'll see how this goes. But I think this was mainly targeted at how strong Azir comps have been, and Silco fits pretty well in those things. Okay, Xayah is getting a bug fixed, an issue that caused Xayah to gain extra mana through Ionia bonus. Very cool. And as compensation, they are giving her a small AD ratio buff. I think Xayah is in a pretty good spot. I don't think she's overtuned. I don't think she's too crazy. I don't think she's weak either. So I think this is a good kind of power neutral change right here. I'm a big fan. Okay, Gangplank is getting a passive AD burn buff. Basically, hardly anybody plays Gangplank on frontline. You almost always play him on backline, so he gets that cast for the ship as early as possible. You guaranteed cast. A lot of times I put Gangplank on frontline. He doesn't even cast sometimes. He just takes too much damage, doesn't cast. So so this is good. So if you guys are playing Gunner comp, especially this helps the Aphelios comp. If you end up playing Gunner, he gets that passive AD, and you have some items to play on a frontline AD carry, then give it a try. I also think if you build some RFC and you're trying to flex around Nyla and Mordekaiser, and then you don't end up hitting, maybe do second row Gangplank RFC, especially with this AD ratio buff, especially if you end up playing Aphelios. Could be very strong. Give it a try, guys. I'll be doing some testing this week. Cassante is getting nerfed. So, I don't think Bastion comps are super good right now. Maybe they'll start seeing maybe they'll start seeing some hype with this Aphelios buff. We'll see. But the whole Shurima line is very strong. So this makes sense to me for the Shurima line nerf. Bilgewater Rise needed a buff for sure. Very good buff. Ixtal Rise is getting slightly nerfed. This comp has been performing pretty well, especially with Bastions. As I said, Bastions I don't think are particularly that good. I don't think they're super good, but just this is so good in any front line. You know, Bastions, Bruisers, all of them. Oh yeah, it's not even as good with Bastions, because Bastions already have resist. This is great with Bruisers and Juggernauts, so this makes sense to me. I do really like the Ixtal Rise. I think it's pretty good. It'll still be good. Okay, Freljord, as I said, is getting that buff. We already talked about this. Demacia is getting some nerfs. The Demacia line is very easy to play, and this is why, it's especially one of the reasons why I think you guys should be practicing Urf. But even though the verticals are getting nerfed, Urf still helps you hit those breakpoints at the lower points, like in Demacia and Bilgewater and stuff like that. I really think people should be playing Urf. I think you guys should be practicing. I don't think it's the only legend to play, but I think you should be practicing it for sure. Okay, so 5 piece is getting taken down, and 7 piece, the elite count is going down to 3. That actually makes a pretty big difference. Whenever I play this, I definitely feel my entire team is getting the buff at 4, and I can always have, especially if you're doing Kale reroll, if you're like high rolling a Kale reroll, you can't go like Kale getting the item, Quinn getting the item. Like this is crazy because Kale would get the item, Quinn would get the item, and you like have a Quinn 2-star, or you look for a Quinn 3, like you're high rolling whatever, and you have Fiora have the item and Jarvan have the items. So now you're gonna have to actually make the decision who gets the items, especially if you have a Kale 3. You probably want to have your Quinn have the item if you're playing some Slayers. And then, so you're going to have to not have Jarvan have the item probably, especially if you have Fiora 2-star, or maybe you don't care Fiora. So you're actually going to have to make a decision on who gets the item before every high value unit got it. So I think this is a positive buff for the game. Positive change. I mean, it's a nerf, but it's a positive change for the game overall. Rogue bleed is going down. Rogue has been buffed every single patch for like 5 patches in a row. Finally, it is viable. And so you play like Kiana reroll, Kiana with 4 of the rogues, especially if you have Rogue Emblem, has felt quite strong, or like Vampiric Blades or anything like that, has felt really, really strong. So still give Rogue reroll a try because none of the rogues really got changed other than Echo. And people are really itemizing Kiana first anyways. So do like Kiana Katarina, probably be pretty strong. Or maybe it's still Echo. So do that. Okay, Void Rift Herald. Stage 5. So I still think Rogue is going to be good. Stage 5. So it's getting buffed on Stage 5 and Stage 6. I think this is helpful. I think Rift Herald feels good on Stage 3 and Stage 4, of course. I think it feels pretty good. So this makes a lot of sense. I really think if you hit 6 Void early on in the game, you have a decent early game where you're going into Stage 3 with like 90 health, decent econ. And you hit the 6 Void somewhere on Stage 3 or early part or like 4-1, I think it's probably like a free top 4 comp, but your cap is really low. So this is going to really help you hit your top 4 if that's what you want to do. Okay, Bilgewater is getting some changes here. So Cannonball delay, so the Cannonballs will hit earlier into the fight, especially when you're in those like overtime fights and you really rely on the Cannonball. I have felt this for sure, so this is nice. Bug fix. Bonus cannonball damage now calculates before resist. Cool. And then the 3-piece is getting buffed, which is interesting. I think the 3-piece is actually pretty good early game. However, you don't even think about playing the 3-piece late game. So maybe they're like making you think like if you're playing Nyla as your carry, perhaps like a lot of times I'll have Nyla and Nautilus in my comp, or Nyla and Gangplank in my comp. I don't even think about adding the other one to make sure I get 3 because it really just doesn't matter. So maybe give that a try. Maybe this is going to, force you into putting that into your in-game comp. But I think we're at the spots where it doesn't make sense to play 3 Bilgewater, you still don't. But, it'll feel better if you do opt into playing the 3 Bilgewater later. But I already thought 3 Bilgewater is pretty good early. So definitely play the Bilgewater openers. None of those units really got changed. So I think Bilgewater opener will be a lot stronger. Okay, the 7-piece is going down. Yeah, going for 50 to 100% is a huge jump. And it's not even that hard to hit, especially if you're playing Earth. So I'm happy about this, going down to 90%. I will be playing more 5 Bilgewater builds now. 5 Bilgewater builds, like building the comp feels better to me. But just seeing that 50% to 100% jump, it makes it to where like, man, I got to play this 7 Bilgewater. So I'm happy about this. Wood is getting buff on Ixtal. Yeah, Wood sucks. It gives you 20 bonus health. Like, who cares? 100 health per stage on a unit you have to keep on your board the whole game? Come on. So it's twice, it's double. So when you guys say Wood Ixtal and you're wanting to play some reroll tech, definitely look into this. Maybe it is good enough that you'll actually go out of your way to play Ixtal to gain the permanent health. Like maybe play Loose Streak, but you're playing like, you want to play like Darius reroll, something like that. And you like purposely don't play Noxus in the early game because like maybe you're weak in like this. I'm just creating a hypothetical scenario. Maybe you're weak and you're not going to get your Noxus stats in your early game. You want to Loose Streak and you just play the Ixtal units just to gain HP on Darius. Like that could be a viable strategy now with this 40. I think that's what they're aiming for. And then when you go into stage 3 and do your roll down, then you get your 5 Noxus in and then win streak stage 3 so you can get your stacks. That could be pretty good. That maybe is going to be a viable strategy. Think in the past of like Olaf, like when Olaf has been in the game and you intentionally lose early, you have him die, he gain HP. So I'm kind of thinking about it like that. Like you play like a Loose Streak style to gain this effects. I mean, you don't necessarily have to Loose Streak, But you just like put these units in just to gain the permanent health for a unit that you're going to reroll on stage 3, something like that. Consider that. That could be a viable play pattern. And then 4-piece is getting buffed on stone and wind. Basically, no one plays 4-piece. And if you're playing Earth, this is one of the emblems I do not recommend taking. There are very few emblems I don't recommend taking. It's like this Gunner and this Gunner, Freljord, and one other. But maybe Freljord would be better now. Freljord actually will be a lot better now, actually, because you just have to play Sejuani. So maybe actually take Freljord now. And then what is this? This is Noxus. Okay, sorry, the little arrow is covering it up, but I do remember this. So Noxus is getting the base stat nerfed on the 5 and 7-piece. So 3 Noxus is still going to be great. So that 3 Noxus opener is still going to be great. It's only the 5 and the 7-piece, just the vertical. So this makes a lot of sense to me. Noxus is really good. I think it is still going to be really good. Katarina didn't get any changes. I think it's still going to be really good. So keep playing Noxus if you guys like playing it. And then the Noxus opener it has gotten buffed aside from the Swain nerf. So, okay, Vanquishers, VFX not activating. Nice. This is really annoying to me whenever I put in 4 Vanquisher and nothing happens. Like, you know how when you put in a trait and then it like does like an effect to let you know it happened. So hopefully that'll happen now because it just like, it confused me. And then if you put an emblem during combat, it'll now work. Okay, so this is the Zon buffs that I was talking about. These are pretty good buffs. And I think Zon was already playable in the I think in the high roll scenarios, Zon was already strong. But now, if you have a single emblem and you play 4 Zon, I think you should hardly ever play 4 Zon if you don't have the emblem. Unless this is like way overbuffed right now. I just think the comp is weird. But with an emblem, I think it's really easy to hit 4 Zon, and these effects are pretty good now. So let's just go through them. So attack speed is getting buffed on Shimmer Injector. Shimmer Injector is one of the worst ones. And then Overcharge is getting buffed. Like everything's getting buffed. Like Hex Deck, damage reduction, bonus damage is going up. Robotic Arm, this is on the Overcharge. The bonus true damage is going up. Virulent is the damage is going up. The plague duration is going up. Overcharge is going up. So a lot of changes right there. So definitely if you guys like playing like Jinx reroll and that sort of thing, look into playing that with an emblem, playing 4 Zon Jinx reroll, as well as Vertical Zon with Silco. Silco got nerfed partly because of this and because he was performing super well in the strategist build. So I think this is slightly overbuffed. I do think it's slightly overbuffed, especially with a lot of people playing Earth right now. So definitely look to play the Zon emblem. I've seen some people not recommend taking Zon emblem, but I think I personally recommended taking it because the high roll scenarios are very strong. But now I really do recommend taking the Zon emblem in spots where it makes sense and hit your 4 Zon very easily. Can be very, very, very strong. Okay, augments, know your enemy, and built diff are now Mutual exclusive. Very cool. And then built diff 3 is getting nerfed slightly. Cool. Chemtech enhancement. So the Zon augment. So if you're going to Zon vertical, you have a decent chance of getting this offered. This is a huge buff. Adjacent bonus HP, 100 to 250. What the fuck? That's a huge buff. So if you're playing 6 Zon, your whole team has plus 250 health. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty nuts. So give this a try for sure. Final Reserves is getting buffed. You can no longer be offered this augment if you have Cruel Pact. Cool. They did nerf this on live because people were doing this Fast 9s. I've not seen as many people do Fast 9 Dragon King strats. But, maybe give it a try. They're buffing a lot of the gold-based augments. I don't think legendaries are too crazy right now with that Belvusi not feeling super strong. And Ari does feel very strong, though. So if you guys like playing these Fast 9 strats, they are buffing some strategies for you. Hedge Fund is getting buffed a little bit. Oh, that's tiny, a little bit above. Final Reserves, but I think these are good spots to buff because there's not things that you can hard force every game. Like Hedge Fund you can get with some legends, right? But it's not that good, right? So I think it's a good place to buff it to let you to go 9, but I think it's a good place. All right, cool. All right, Pumping Up is getting nerfed. Pumping Up 2. This makes a lot of sense to me. There's so many good Pumping Up users in this set. I think Master Yi is one of the other pretty good legends, especially with Aphelios getting buffed right now. That you have Aphelios, Azir, Mordekaiser, Nyla, even Zaya is fine with this, right? Legendaries like Heimerdinger and that sort of thing. Heimerdinger, Belveth. So I think Pumping Up is very good, so this nerf makes sense to me. If you guys like playing Master Yi, probably still play Master Yi, but maybe this is going to matter a lot. We'll see. Okay, Ravenous Hunter is getting nerfed slightly. I do think Warwick is pretty good in his high roll scenarios right now. He does feel better with his change from the bonus healing effect. Now he gets bonus attack speed whenever he's starting to cast his ability, and especially with Rage Blade, he just stacks that shit up super fast right now. So this makes a lot of sense to me. Ravenous Hunter has felt pretty good, I think. So Rising Infamy is getting a small nerf. So first major chest happens an average of 1 turn later, and then increase the number of barrages needed to get each chest level. If you get this offer at the beginning of the game, it's a free first. It's felt like a free first every time I've played it. So this makes a lot of sense to me. Still take this if you get it offered in the early game. It's very good econ augment, very fun to play, especially if you already have Bridgewater units to play around. Okay, Stolen Vitality is going down. Vanquishers has been a very well-performing trait, so this makes sense to me. This is going down. Teaming Up is replaced with Job Done. Cool. Then Teaming Up 2, gold is going down a little bit, and then Teaming Up 3. This is a big change. Support item 2 to 1, but then you gain 12 gold. That's a pretty big change, so we'll see how that shakes out. Okay, the boss Set carry, excess damage that puts Set under 60% health is now a nerf, so Set will consistently only do four sit-ups. This is a slight buff. He will come back into the combat earlier. This is a buff to if you want to play the boss Talia comp, and Talia got buffed as well, so maybe give that a try. We'll see how this works out. Now, Rat Town, this is a specific Leduc. This is because of the Leduc video. If you guys aren't watching Leduc videos, he's great. He tests the weirdest scenarios. He really limit tests weird things to try to find exploits and a bunch of stuff like that. So Rat Town, there was an exploit where portals now caches traits at the start of the round. So if your shop was locked around before, it can be tailored. So what Leduc was doing, I think this definitely need to be removed to the game because it creates a very unusual play pattern and almost like a forbidden knowledge. If you know it, you can do it. You could lock your shops so that you can guarantee whenever the Rat Town would spawn for you, because you can just see if people get Rat Town on their board, where you get the shops that are tailored to your thing. And then, so you would just lock and you would see other people, and then you would take all the units out, and then you would unlock, refresh your shop, and it would be Rat Town. And then it was basically worked nearly to the same effects as a loaded dice did. So you would just get all the units you need, and you just 3-star units. It was not good. It was not healthy for the game and was very unusual exploit. So definitely need to be removed. Scuttle Puddle, the crab is getting buffed by a lot. This is probably just so that round doesn't immediately end. So you get the same amount of round time that you would associate with PvE. So you can mentally plan a little bit. Maybe if you want to roll during PvE, you can do that as well. So this is a good change, good quality of life change for the game. Bramble Vest is the crit reduction is going down, which is interesting. I do think this is a very good item because things like Vanquishers are very strong and that sort of thing. You still build the item, of course. Evan Shroud is getting buffed. I think this is a better put it in line with the power of Spark. Now, I don't see Spark overperforming anything like that, but Evan Shroud does feel a little bit on the weak side of a tank item versus the damage that you can see Spark do. So I think it's a positive buff. Redemption, damage reduction is going down. Interesting. Rapid Fire Cannon, bug fix. We already talked about this. Guard Breaker, attack speed is going down. So, even more better on AP units now. Interesting. Sterix is going down. This is what I'm talking about, the Fiora nerf, and this also goes in line with the Radiant item. So this is a nerf to Fiora, Darius, Nyla. This makes a lot of sense. A lot of the units that like to use these are pretty strong, and their builds are pretty strong. Now, this is what I was talking about the Sojin. The attack damage ratio, the attack damage buff is going up from 10% to 15%. I've been testing a little bit of this with Xayah. I think this item is pretty good on Xayah, especially if you're in 3 Ionia builds. Now, if you're in 6 Ionia builds, not super good. But I do think it's pretty good on Xayah with 3 Ionia. Especially her mana. She was bugged and she was gaining extra mana. So give this a try on Xayah for sure. And, obviously, this is just a great early game slam. If you can actually make this into a flexible slam between AD and AP, that's going to be really, really, really interesting. It's already, flexible because if you want to play Aphelios, you end up playing, side carrying Silco, that's fine. You have a Sojin form, and some legendaries units can use Sojin. So I already think this item is pretty good as a flex item, but if you can actually itemize Xayah on this, I think it's good on 3 Ionia. But if you can itemize Aphelios on this as well, I'm going to try some Sojin Aphelios, especially they buffed his spell damage opposed to his chakram damage. So I'm going to give this a try. Maybe you can substitute this instead of Rageblade, and his build is just different. He's just nuking with his spell. We'll see. We'll see how that works out. Okay, Static Shiv is getting buffs to the attack speed. This is a buff to an Azir item. Remember, Azir got nerfed. A lot of things got nerfed in his build. So if you guys weren't building Static Shiv on Azir before, going into the PBE cycle, they did buff the flat AP. So definitely give this item a try on Azir. And if you're already playing this item on Azir, and a lot of people like to play this item on Azir, of course, then Azir went power neutral in this patch because he got a very small nerf, but then he got a buff to one of his core items that you can build on him. So I think Azir actually goes power neutral if you build Static Shiv. So this is very cool. I think Static Shiv is supposed to be one of those early game items that feels really, really, really good. And it is, but it definitely has fallen off from its prominence in past sets of where it's been very strong. Like some of the strongest early game items are like Runaan's Hurricane, Sunfire Cape, even Bramble sometimes. Those are some of the more premier early game items. And Static Shiv used to be in that class. And so now give Static Shiv a slam just as a tempo item. I'm going to try just slamming it as a tempo item. And then I move into like Azir, that sort of thing. Or even, I put Silco with the item or something like that. You know what I mean? So I still think you can flex with this item. Doesn't necessarily mean you're playing AP. So give that a try as a tempo item. I'm definitely going to test it as a tempo item. Okay, support item Aegis. The duration is going down. Needlessly Big Gem has felt pretty good to me. Damage amplification going down. Very cool. No longer in line with Ascension then. Shroud of Stillness. HP is going down. Yeah, I don't think you need much HP if you're getting to Shroud people, especially when Shroud is so much harder to hit. Makes sense. Zhonya's Paradox is getting buffed. Now, this is one of the best items for Mordekaiser, and Mordekaiser got nerfed, so very cool. This item is very good on Azir. This item is good on a lot of early game units like Cassiopeia, that sort of thing. So I think it's pretty good, especially for you Ornn enjoyers. Moramana is getting buffed, which I'm actually kind of surprised. I think there's a lot of good users of this in the early game when you get it dropped, especially in the Noxus line. Like Cassio, Samira with this item, I think is really good. They're just spamming. Very good on Silco. This is probably Silco's best item. Good on any spellcaster, right? But I think there's a lot of good early game users, and legendaries, of course, are great with this. Gangplank, Ahri. I think there's a lot of good late game users, a lot of good early game users. I'm surprised at this buff, honestly. Okay, Radiant. Absolution going down, cool. Spear of Sojin, Radiant is getting buffed. Again, the AD ratio going up a little bit. So, hey, guys, maybe give this a try. I'm not going to build Spear of Sojin. I'm not going to build Radiant Spear of Sojin on AD unit. I'm not doing that. But maybe. But I definitely will try the base version, of course. Sterak's is going down, like we talked about. So, small nerf to Fiora there for you Fiora enjoyers. Willbreaker is going down. The attack speed is going down to fall in line with what it was doing before. Static is getting buffed. I'm definitely going to try this. If I get a Radiant item opener, I'm definitely going to try this. Okay, Jackshow, this is Adaptive Helm. The resists are going down a little bit. Bramble, the Rosethorn Vest is going down a little bit. Equinox, the bonus resist is going up, it looks like. And then Runaan's is getting buffed. Interesting. Definitely will, if I get this offered early game, I will definitely take this. Cool. All right, here's some bug fixes. So fix a bug where Milio's bounce logic wasn't looking far enough behind the target, so it'll more consistently hit backline units. Fix a bug where Rise Bilgewater wouldn't deal damage if he died before the missile landed. I definitely have noticed this. Fix a bug where Naiwa's enhanced attack VFX were smaller than intended. Cool. Fixed a bug where Misfortune's spell would fizzle. This is what we talked about earlier. Piltover Cash Out, which converts into Radiant items, now works properly with the new items. Cool. Ixtal now works on Ghost armies. Very cool. I did not know it was not working. Ixtal will no longer display hexes mid-combat. Cool. Illaoi will now correctly use her ability if she has full mana at the start of combat. I have noticed that one. And then Shurima's Legacy. I definitely noticed this one. Shurima's Legacy now functions properly when fighting a ghost army. I was definitely noticing, I was like, man, I'm playing this vertical Shurima comp. This comp felt pretty good. I'm taking Shurima's Legacy. I feel like I should be like getting a free top 4. And I'm getting 6th place. I'm like, what's happening? And I'm looking at my damage in my Shurima's Legacy. Sometimes it's just dealing like 300 damage. And we're on stage 5. I'm like, what is happening? I have a static Shiv and everything. I'm like, what's happening? So yeah, definitely try Shurima's Legacy on this patch. It felt really bad on last patch. Anyways, guys, that is it. That is a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff to try. Not really gonna do a synopsis, but a lot of things to try. Especially, I want to try Sojin on AD users. I think there's some reroll techs you can try. They're really wanting you to play Sejuani now, so maybe give that a try. Give the Void line a little bit of practice. I know it doesn't really require much practice. Give Aphelios some practice. Try the Sojin tech. See how it goes. Maybe it's terrible. We'll see. But yeah, I'm really excited to test on this patch. I hope you guys are as well. And if you guys like to receive more updates, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing a lot of guides, a lot of stuff. I've been playing a lot of PBE. And so if you don't have opportunities to play a lot of PBE, I got you guys. There are very few people in the world who watch or play more TFT than I. And I try to just, my goal is to keep you guys updated and keep you guys in the know. So that's it from me. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you on the next one.